Welcome to Fresh Perspectives, a series with professionals who have insights. And today I'm with Christine Ong, who is Head of People and Talent at Quantum Motion. Welcome, Christine.
Thank you for having me.
Can we start by exploring some of the crucial challenges facing organizations, particularly in managing high-tech talent in today's world?
Sure. Great question, John. I think to be more specific with high-tech talent, we're referring to, of course, technical talent within startups or also large companies as well. I would say if you look back in the history of the last, let's say, 3 or 4 years, of course, we had COVID in 2020, where I think it completely changed the way of working, where a lot of talent were able to dictate where they could work. And of course, with a lot of skilled workers, and in this space, I mean software engineering talent at the time, they were able to work remotely anywhere they want. So we could be a UK-based company, and we were seeing a lot of our talent saying, you know what, I'm going to go to work from Bali, or I'm going to go back home in the US. Why should I come back? So I think that kind of started the shift, where by the last 3 or 4 years, companies are having to start to adapt in terms of where the talent is going. And actually what the talent we're seeing is an uptick of job applications coming through when companies start to say that they are able to look at more hybrid or remote working. So looking at Stack Overflow, which is a pure technical talent jobs board, the application rate for a company when they say that they are allowing remote workers goes up by significantly by 60%.
Right.
So what does that tell us? It also means globalization, because what that means is companies are able to look externally and not just, say, in my case, a UK market, to look at talent globally. And I think that's great, because I think as an industry, we're always looking for diversity of talent. Therefore, that opens the doors completely kind of wide for companies to look at.
Yeah. And turning to the individual who might be the high-tech talent, what does this mean for them?
I think it's also interesting back to the shift, because back in 2020, it was definitely more talent driven market. So it meant talent had more opportunities. So it would be the norm where a candidate will be interviewing in 3 or 4 companies and they could pick and choose depending on where they're going. Now, fast forward to 2020, late 2022, 2023, that's happening right now. We're hearing a lot of big tech companies actually making a lot of layoffs. So actually the market has shifted a bit, where it's now going back to the employers to dictate what they want. But I think the good news is, for the talent perspective, is there are still very kind of specific industries and specific roles that companies are still hiring for. So, for example, in the past, we hear the likes of Meta and Amazon, where they're bloating teams of maybe up to 200 to 400 engineers working on one particular product. Now it's much more leaner and more agile. And also with the rise of new technologies such as generative AI tools that we're hearing in the market, such as ChatGPT, and we're actually hearing a lot more companies utilizing GPT. So I think what that means is, how can we as talent, I mean, if you're a software engineer, and actually I'm learning how to use it as well, leverage these tools to make yourself better and more efficient in your roles. A good use case of this, just to kind of continue on, I think there's a lot of fear mongering. But we're reading the news like, oh, are they going to replace our jobs? I think the latest study has shown the latest GPT, which is 4.0, has beat the bar, like students were studying towards a bar exam by 80%, which may
I
seem
saw
scary.
that.
Yeah, which may seem really scary, but actually, it's more about how can you make yourself more efficient? How can you get you to think more, I guess, strategically? So there's different ways that you can work around it, that I think now is the time to be learning these tools.
Yeah. Well, there's little doubt that GAI, isn't it?
Yes.
Or AI augmented roles are
Yeah.
definitely a part of the future.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the future a little bit. Let's take out the crystal ball, shall we?
Yeah.
I know you're very involved in future focused fora. You were hosting the UK Chancellor last week on also talking about the future. Where is the ball going here? For example, you mentioned the geographical factor. Are globalized workforces here to stay?
I would say so. I think looking towards the industry overall, and the biggest markets or countries rather, whether it's the US, China, the UK, everyone's working towards kind of similar goals, whether it is AI, quantum computing, which is in my space, and of course, you hear lots of kind of different startups that's coming up in loads of different industries. But I think, if you take a step back and you look at the talent that's actually coming out of universities, which are then going on to work for these companies, they are all completely global.
Mm.
You get Indian talent going to found companies in the US. You have Chinese talent building companies over in the UK. So 100%, I would say, the world's your oyster. And from a company perspective, and I would definitely say from even the governmental perspective, they're always looking at ways on how to create better access for talent. In the US, you've got the H-1B visas, which are incredibly competitive. But I know for a fact, companies, because there's not enough talent out there working in this space, companies will, of course, do everything they can to try to secure this talent. So I would say globalization definitely. It would definitely be, I think, instrumental. I think as an individual, if you're starting to explore yourself in this space or transitioning into this space, there's so many free resources online about these new technologies. And secondly, to understand at a world stage, how are different countries and companies kind of leading in particular areas. I think if you look back in the tech industry overall, let's say the early days of Web 2.0, you see so many different companies at different, I guess, navigating different aspects of what we call the tech stack. Let's take AWS, for example. They're, a massive cloud infrastructure, I guess, platform, but it's a consolidation of lots of different companies, which was what it was 10 years ago. So we're starting to see that now with GAI, with quantum computing. We are, as a company, Quantum Motion, tackling hardware, which is one specific space, but there are other competitors who are looking at the software, the DevOps. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all consolidates in the next 5 to 10 years.
And you expect consolidation?
I would say so. I mean, I don't think I expect it, but just looking at the history of how companies operate, and looking at the history of technology industry, whether it's Web 1.0 or 2.0, you look back at, I don't know, Netscape, and,
Right.
and then you're looking at the MySpace and how it all kind of started at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, everything is iteration of the last technology, and
Right.
looking at adoption, user adoption, everything's learning something previously better than the last product. And who knew Google would be so big right now? But who knows what's next? So I think that's what OpenAI is quite scary at the moment, because it is literally everyone's going in there and typing in all their questions, and where is the information going? So is OpenAI going to be consolidating all of these different companies in terms of the next steps?
Mm,
So yeah, interesting to
yeah.
see where it goes.
Or will they just be breaking the ground for others, as MySpace did? So
Exactly.
where we're currently seeing this divergence of AI tools, maybe we will at some point begin to see this consolidation.
Yeah, and then you've got Elon Musk coming out with XAI as well last week. There's a competitor tool called Claude that's just come out this week, which is meant to be way better than OpenAI. So yeah,
Mm.
well, I think we're just starting.
Indeed, we're just starting. So, what's the key message to an organization? Let's say to someone like yourself who is, looking at developing talent
Mhm.
in this globalized, fast-moving, AI augmented space. Um, what
Scary.
if you had to think of one tip to give them, what would it be?
Yeah, I think ultimately, look, we're working in a knowledge-based economy, and from a company perspective, like I still believe that skilled workers are able to dictate, where they work, how they work, and as a company, we need to be thinking about how to be able to accommodate these needs. So what I'm seeing is a lot of companies are mandating returning back to work. Like, take JP Morgan, for example, is now saying everyone has to come back in, 4 days a week. So I think we need to kind of look at it more holistically and listen to our people. What do they want? So therefore, conversely, we can't turn around and say, oh, we can't hire quick enough, when really the talent is there, but we're not listening to their needs. So I
Hmm.
think that would be the key takeaway, is
Right.
really adapting to what the talent is saying, rather than thinking that we are dominating the messaging here.
What a great message to finish on, listening to the people. Christine, thanks very much for joining me today.
Thank you, John.